So you can't be a good white person and put your body in between them trying to kidnap a brown person or harm a black person. When you do that, you lose your proximity to whiteness.
A lot of you who hear this message are going to understand that you knew this as a child. You knew this as a child. And I highly recommend that you go watch her full video. The link's in the description. It is very important. And I'm going to go into an area that's going to be uncomfortable for some of you. And it's going to be visceral and intimate. But it is necessary because I believe it is the foundation for what she's saying. That so many people that look just like me are shocked that someone that looks like them could have this happen to them on the streets of Minneapolis. And she goes on to say, but this is something you need to understand and get comfortable with, is that you're going to lose your proximity to whiteness. If you're going to stand with those and advocate for those and defend those who aren't white. And she basically saying that a lot of people seem like they don't understand this, but I'm going to argue that a lot of you already know this, and you've known it since you were little. You maybe just didn't realize it. So I'm going to explain it to you. And I've talked about this before within the last month about Dean Withers had someone on his podcast who was asking why it's wrong to grape children. And I went into talking about how there are a lot of you out there who were gatekeepers when you were little. Gatekeepers of the jokes, the locker room talk, the bigotry, the racist rhetoric. And you weren't gatekeepers because you thought that it was true and you believed like those who were saying these things or doing these things. It's because you understood that your proximity to safety could be challenged if you were to speak out and tell what uncle said, or what dad said, or what grandpa said, or what mom said. Because when you're 10 years old, 11 years old, you understand, a lot of you understood, that in order to stay safe, you just had to keep quiet. You understood the injustice of what you were hearing people say around you, but you knew that if you spoke up and raised feathers, that would make it to where you may not be safe anymore. You heard people around you who were close to you say things when you were growing up, and so you understood that it wasn't safe to stand up for certain communities of people. I know you all understand. Not all of you, but a lot of you are hearing me right now and you understand what I'm saying. People that said they loved you, you came to understand as you got older that it wasn't unconditional love necessarily. It was conditional on you not breaking cycles, on you not disrupting the trauma that everyone swept under the rug. Because loyalty makes you family. And you understood this. You understood these proximities. And I'm going to share a very personal story with you real quick. When I was in junior high and high school, we moved to a new school. And one of the first people that I became friends with was this young boy who was half Hispanic. His dad was just like me. His mom was Hispanic. And I watched how being his friend put me in the line of target, right? The line of fire, if you will, of being bullied because I was his friend. And not only because he was half Hispanic, but because he was also more effeminate, which didn't matter to me. I see people for who they are inside. And I was his best friend for 6-7 years going into community college. And there were people all around me, some of the closest people in my life, who made fun of me for being friends with him and who made fun of him behind his back. And I understood, even as I was a teenager, going into my, 15, 16, 17 years old, that it was very difficult to push back on the things I heard from people that said they loved me, because I didn't know the certainty of what would happen if I said how I felt. A lot of times I felt like I had a vice around my neck, that I just had to take what I heard because I had somewhere to live. And I had heard enough things growing up to know that there were people around me who were glad that I wasn't like him, who were relieved that I didn't turn out to be part of a community that they target. And I know a lot of you out there have that same childhood as I did. We've understood the proximity. I've understood for a long time that sticking up for people and seeing them as equals and worthy, that lessens the proximity of those who don't see it that way. This goes for anything, not just the color of your skin. This goes for your orientation, who you love. This is so much deeper. And every time you stand up and advocate for a certain group, because you've known that since you were younger, that justice for all actually meant something, and that you see people as equals because you're compassionate and empathetic, and you've always been that way inherently, you lose a little bit of that proximity along the way. And a lot of you now find yourself very isolated, with hardly anybody around you, maybe little to no family, maybe just your wife or your husband and your kids, because you've chosen to stand for people, because you care about people. It's the hardest part. It is very hard, but for a lot of you out there, you don't have a choice. You don't have a say in it. It's who you are. And I'm going to argue that the only reason, the main reason that the man at the top has any support left is because a large portion of those who we perceive as supportive of him, they're afraid just like you were when you were little. They never broke the cycle because they didn't want to be ostracized or disowned or abandoned by people that said they loved them. And now they find themselves in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they've gone so long keeping up with that cycle that breaking that cycle seems impossible maybe to them. The speaking up and saying, hey man, actually, this isn't okay at all. Taking that risk of those around them abandoning them because they finally speak their truth, that can be debilitating. And I would argue that even more so, carrying that weight of the trauma and abusive cycles into your 50s, 60s, and 70s. Whereas a lot of us, when we were younger, we broke the cycle and stepped away. And the fear of losing those who are all you've ever known, I think a lot of these people are just going along to get along because those around them are all they have. And they understand, just like we did as kids, that if they speak up, if they cross over that line and they join us on the streets and they stand for people that don't look like them, they might be saying goodbye to all those who they thought cared about them. And maybe that's all they have left. It's a really sad situation that we're in this country. And this woman explains it so beautifully, yet so terrifyingly. I hope that this helps some of you out there understand that you've always known the proximities you've lost as you've gone through life. Some people just realize it later, some never do.